Hi everyone, and welcome back to Lemon Dew. I'm Brie, and in today's episode, I'm actually going to be talking about my experience of meeting my local MP and also my career progression journey. So it's been a long time, about 2 to 3 months since I last recorded for my podcast. Now, the reason why I haven't been as active is because I have been sorting out a few things in relation to real life, more or less in terms of work, because I have sort of casually been looking for a job closer to home in terms of commute, and also I wasn't feeling well over the past couple of weeks because I've had fatigue and depression, and now I've figured out that I'm going through a bout of autistic burnout. So what I've done is I've decided to book a few days off this month just so I can have some time for myself. Because lately I feel that I have been pushing myself way too much without fully realizing that my physical and mental well-being is being affected. So besides that, I'm slowly sort of trying my best to push through work without burning out. And I have a day off tomorrow as well, which is great because I just needed to make my weekend just a little bit longer so I could have a bit of time to, just decompress and chill. Now, in terms of the episode I was going to do on autistic representation in media, that is going to come soon. It is in the works and I have my notes nearly drafted, but that's going to be released at another day. I don't know when, but it will be at some point. And speaking of autistic burnout, I am going to be covering an episode on that as well, in terms of what it is, as well as my experience of going through it and how I am trying my best to deal with it. So now I'm going to begin with today's topic. So on the 4th of July, I actually met the MP of my local constituency to discuss my concerns surrounding disability benefits. So for those of you who haven't listened to my last episode, I covered the disability benefit cuts which Labour were proposing. And this is, of course, a very controversial topic, especially because for disabled people in the UK, it costs a lot of money to live, especially when it comes to healthcare, because you need to arrange appointments, you need specialist equipment in your home, and with working as well, it's very difficult for disabled people to not only find jobs, but to actually maintain jobs. So a while back, I did talk about autism and work, more so in terms of the barriers autistic people face when it comes to finding a job. But I did talk about my experiences of being an autistic woman who is one in a small percentage of individuals that is in employment and has somehow managed to maintain consistent employment without being fired. Because I've never been fired from a job. I've only ever quit jobs, and that's pretty much the gist of my working history. Somehow from the age of 19, I've worked. I'm still working, even though there are times where my executive functioning levels go from being at the top to being absolute shit, but I'm doing it. I don't know how I'm managing, but I'm trying my best. So going back to the topic, I actually wrote an email one day to my local MP expressing how the disability benefit cuts would affect the local population, especially in terms of, as mentioned, healthcare costs. And I think when I wrote this email as well, I also mentioned the subject of Labour's proposed plan, quote unquote, to get disabled people back into work. And it's not to say that I think this is a bad idea, but my main concern was the execution, because every time the government puts in these get back to work schemes, they don't end well. So if you look at all the countless schemes for 18 to 24-year-olds, for example, like Kickstart, you mostly had employers taking advantage of the younger generation because they could get away with paying them cheaply, and they didn't really give long-term jobs that would help them propel into suitable careers. And I know it's not in the same context, it's just an example. So, I mentioned the job market being difficult to navigate, and I know myself, especially because I have had my own experiences of being unsuccessful when it comes to looking for jobs, and I've done recruitment. So having that extra bit of knowledge as a former recruiter gives me insight into what employers look for. And I don't really like saying this because it sounds a bit harsh, but a lot of employers don't really want disabled people working for them because they see them as a liability, they see them as being too costly where accommodations are concerned, and they think that they're going to quote unquote cause problems. So that's why a lot of employers are very hesitant. They'd rather just have someone who's able-bodied with a pulse because they're less likely to complain. They're just going to be compliant, and that's what they want. So, I talked about not only the barriers when it comes to the application process, but also job interviews, because some disabled individuals do have a hard time articulating themselves in job interviews. I mean, even I have a hard time despite having a hidden disability, because having to talk about my work experience, having to answer hypothetical questions, even maintaining eye contact, as I don't really like people staring at me for long periods of time. It just throws me off. And I feel, I just feel nervous inside. I feel like everything's going to go wrong. So it's like I'm basically predicting the end of the world when you think about it. But the point that I'm trying to explain here is, I did mention all these barriers, and I also mentioned some plans that the government, as well as employers, could really look into when it comes to getting disabled people jobs, especially in terms of having specialists with disabilities who work in certain industries that individuals will be interested in. Because I feel like when you work with people who have similar experiences, they're more relatable, rather than just, going to a job centre and being shoved into a job that's completely unsuitable, because that's not really going to help anybody. That's just going to hinder the person. So the good news was that my MP understood my concerns, and they did mention as well their husband does work with autistic children, which is actually quite interesting. And one thing she touched upon was the fact that the one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work, because every disabled person has different needs. So, with autism as an example, no autistic person is the same. And I know I keep saying this in a lot of my episodes, but it is the goddamn truth, because even though I'm level 1 autistic, my needs could be different to one of my friends who is level 1 autistic. And mind you, I do have friends with autism like myself who are in consistent employment. It's just certain needs they have are completely different to my own, because you might have one person who thrives in social situations and another who doesn't. So I mean, looking at my job, considering that I'm a receptionist, I somehow managed to slowly thrive because I'm used to working in an office, even though I'm really not a people person. But then another autistic person might not be able to cope with my job because of the social interaction, the multitasking, which is something I'm actually good at, which I didn't even realize. So, all these different factors might not be compatible, if that makes sense. Now, another thing that made me feel very elated when it came to meeting my MP was that she took several viewpoints from locals to 10 Downing Street, including my own. And I got a first class letter from the House of Commons in regards to my email making a positive contribution. And I've still kept that letter because I think I'm probably going to put it in my scrapbook. And I actually have a photo with my local MP, which is going to be included in my scrapbook because lately I've been getting back into scrapbooking and I've been including some photos of food and places, just preserving memories. So yeah, I got a photo for my scrapbook. But, even though I was really nervous at first when it came to meeting my MP, I think it was really great having the experience to talk to them face to face because, I'm a local, I live in a certain area, and I want to be able to use my voice and use my experiences to help other people who can't advocate for themselves. And it's strange because I never really thought I could do something like this, mainly because I was always an introverted person. I still am. But I think what it is I'm slowly realizing that I have so much to offer besides being someone who sits on a desk 5 days a week, answering emails and phone calls. I have all these skills and I'm really trying to find out how I can utilize them as best as I can. And I think it's great knowing that I am pushing myself to speak on issues that I am passionate about. Because, I don't know, when I have a passion for something, I go 100%. I just go 100%. So it's like when I'm creating art or when I'm creating videos for my YouTube channel, I put in the effort to make them of high quality because I want my viewers to enjoy a high quality product. I don't like rushing things because I feel like the quality of my work will be poor. And speaking of other opportunities, I have actually emailed about visiting Parliament, which is something I've never done before. So I'm just waiting for an update on that. And I'll probably bring my mum with me so we can have like a little day trip or something. But yeah, I am probably going to go to Parliament soon. And it's really fucking exciting. And, this is just huge. I didn't think I could do things like this. It's just really huge. I'm just really elated. And in terms of other news, I have also been in contact with the Labour councillor of my local borough, who is also autistic like myself. And that's actually really cool, having an autistic person in government. That's really fucking cool. That's just fucking amazing. So, I kind of wrote an email to her about my experience of meeting my MP and how I want to, expand my podcast because I want to try and get it out to my local community, And I want to go into advocacy. I want to go into advocacy for autism. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm in the process of exploring potential options. So I got an email back saying that we can meet in person to brainstorm some ideas. So I'm just waiting for an update on that as well. But that's progress. It's progress and it's amazing, And speaking of progress and career options and such, I have been looking into training courses because I've been thinking about potential careers that I want to go into. So I have mentioned before that I've considered becoming an art therapist that specialises in autism, or a mentor that specialises in autism, or like a life coach or something. But I've actually been thinking of becoming a recruitment consultant that specialises in helping autistic people get jobs. And I know it's ironic because I don't really want to work in an office job again, but I think in this case, I probably would enjoy being a recruitment consultant because I want to use my work history and my lived experience to basically get autistic people jobs that they feel fulfilled in. Because like I said many times, in the UK, you have a lot of work coaches in job centres that treat people like statistics. So, they just want to get you into any old job. They don't really consider your skills, your qualifications, or your experience. And it's kind of sad because you have so many people that have so many things to offer, and they just get shoved in 0-hour contracts or jobs in retail or care or warehousing because the turnover is high, but you're not really looking at what that person can actually do. And I think that's why I want to go into recruitment for, autistic individuals, because I've been a recruiter before. I have an idea of what employers are looking for. I am an autistic woman in employment, and again, when it comes to work, there's not enough support as is. I mean, I didn't even know access to work was a thing until last year, and now that I know about it, I don't know what I'm entitled to. I really don't, because I've more or less, I guess, coped with minimal support because I've had to as an autistic adult, and it's just, that's just kind of how I've dealt with my adult years. So yeah, I've thought about going into recruitment and specialising in autism, and I've even thought of becoming an assistive tech trainer, because I used to use assistive technology programs when I was in university, so I had them installed on my laptop, things like a audio note taker for lectures, which was really helpful, and a built-in dictionary. And because I'm good with technology as well, I'm thinking maybe I could teach disabled people how to use assistive tech. So I don't know if they're in higher education and they struggle, or if they struggle at work, they've got the skills to use programs to help them do their work. So there are 2 courses I've been looking into. So there's a level 3 course I found which relates to working therapeutically with autistic adults. So in the next couple of weeks, when I'm off, I'm going to have a Zoom call with the tutor just to sort of see what the course is about, how the fees work, and how the sessions work as well, because this is a course which is one you can sort of self-study, and the sessions are on weekends, which would be okay because I work Monday to Friday. So having the free time on weekends and days off would be doable as long as I can, get an extension. And then I've also found a course about assistive technology, so learning how to use different types of software. So if I were to do that, I could sort of familiarize myself with different things and then use my knowledge to teach people. So yeah, there's different possibilities, and I want to explore as many options as I can. So I am going to end today's episode here. It's been a while, it's been a bit of a short one, but I promise I will be going back to uploading content on a regular basis. It's just because I've been dealing with real life things, that's why I haven't been uploading as much. So my next episode is going to be about the subject of autistic burnout, as mentioned before. So I'm going to talk about what it is, I'm going to talk about why it exists, what it's like for me to go through it, and how best to deal with it if you're autistic. So, trying your best, because that's what you can do. You can't do everything in one go, and if you can't do everything in one go, it's fine. But anyway, I will be ending things here, so I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend and get as much relaxation as you need, because it's a new week from tomorrow and most people go back to work. I don't go back to work until Tuesday because I'm off tomorrow, so yay. But until the next time, I'm signing off, and in the next couple of weeks on a Sunday, the episode on autistic burnout will be out. So stay tuned until then. Bye for now.